Well, I want to say welcome to Amy Dreyer Rodriguez, um, fabulous principal at PS 282 in New York City. And Amy, thank you so much for joining me here on Leader Bubble, the opportunity to talk with you about your role as a principal, but also to get to know you a little bit more in this role since I knew you when we were teachers together,
Way back.
hitting it strong in the South Bronx,
That's right.
starting a brand new middle school and just becoming really great friends and colleagues. But I want to thank you so much for your opportunity to share your insight and your story with me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So let's start with just kind of open. Just tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you, but the audience doesn't. So a little bit about who Amy Dreyer Rodriguez is, how you got started in education, and how did you land where you are right now at PS 282?
So, okay, just the Reader's Digest. Mother, wife, daughter, human person, just kind of stumbling through life and trying to laugh as much as I can and to experience as much as I can. And I think I became a teacher. I actually ran away from my rural home and packed a bag, one bag, and $65 and moved to New York City when I was 22. And I was going to be a writer.
Yes.
And I was going to get into publishing and be the next big thing. So I landed a job at Scholastic, doing any number of things from internet publishing and quality assurance, etc. And I was about 10 blocks away, 15 blocks away when 9/11 happened. So I saw the first plane when I was on the Q train going towards Manhattan. And at first I just thought it was kind of a JFK moment where somebody just kind of lost their horizon. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. And then by the time I'd gotten off at Canal Street and I walked the few blocks up to Soho, the second plane had hit. And so everybody was in a sense of just pure panic and trauma. And I think I had the only phone that was working. So I was passing my phone around to people so they could call their families. And I had a view of everything. And it was terrifying. And at some point, they finally let us out of the building. And I lived in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. So I walked about 5 miles, crossing over the Manhattan Bridge, going down Flatbush. But the thing that struck me as like probably the scariest moment of my life, or one of the most scariest moments of my life, was the people from all different backgrounds helping each other. So there were people who were disabled who, like just pure strangers, were carrying them across the bridge. When we got off of the Manhattan Bridge, there were like Arabic bodega owners passing out water, just, please be safe, God bless you, take care of one another. And that was kind of the minute I was like, you know what? This is really what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to be in service of people, because people, when the chips are down, are really down for one another. So I very quickly became a teaching fellow and landed into South Bronx at Kappa 3, right across the hall from you.
Yep.
And then you offered me the opportunity to be a literacy coach, so I came with you to Kappa 2. And then I think I had an illness that just put me out of commission for a little bit, but still wanted to be in education. And you hooked me up with Kappa 7, which was in Bed-Stuy. And I was a teacher there, I was a coordinator there, I was an assistant principal there. And then it was the time of the small schools and they were closing schools. And a lot of principal turnaround. So in the 5 years that this school had been open, it had 5 or 6 principals. So one of my principal at the time came to me and she said, well, I have another opportunity. Guess what? You're the principal. So being a principal isn't something that I had actively pursued. It was something that I just kind of fell into. I was like the reluctant principal. So she said, never tell people that you hadn't planned on being a principal. And I said, well, that's who I am. I accepted the responsibility. Um, and from the moment I became a principal, I applied for a school improvement grant, and received $1 million school improvement grant. Although they ended up closing the school anyway, but because of that, I was taken into another district, and kind of bounced around there for a little while. And then I came back to my home district in Brooklyn District 13, and was kind of a absentee principal, I guess, for a while. So anybody who needed a little administrative help. So I was in 4, 5, 6 schools.
Wow.
And I needed to find a home. I had been in middle schools for 16 years at that point, and I loved it, and I loved the creative chaos around it,
Yes.
and I loved all of it. But I was feeling run down and defeated a little bit. So when I'd gotten into teaching, I always thought I would be a kindergarten teacher. I have no idea. I kind of ended up in this middle school place. And I eventually, there was an opportunity 2 blocks away from where I was working. And the interim acting, I'd heard from a number of people said, oh, she does not want, thank you, she does not want this position, which was a whole different story. But I got a job as an elementary school principal at PS 282, Park Slopes School. I've been there going on 5 years now. And I think there's about 10 years left in the journey. And I think my intention is to retire at PS 282, and from then on, go and wreak havoc other places once my time is up.
Yeah, that's awesome. You and I sort of cross paths in some weird kind of ways. And first of all, thank you for sharing that part of your journey, because, that 2001 was a very difficult year for many people. And and most people can remember where they were. I was in the Bronx at the time, and my husband was working down at the Federal Reserve. My brother was working for the health department off of Worth Street. And so they got to witness what you witnessed. And from being so far away, I didn't know what was happening, right? Didn't see my husband until 7:30 at night, and thought he was dead. And so I'm one of the lucky ones that was able to have a loved one who came home.
Right.
But we know that more than 2,000 people perished that day. And for many, just like you, saw the strength and the humanity of people in such a way that, New Yorkers during that time will never forget, right? Never forget that. That's the slogan, that's the motto, never forget, but also never forget like how we helped each other. And so that being an impetus for you to be a servant leader, I think is testament to how I met you. I think when I first met you at Kappa, and we were rival homeroom sisters.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
We just had such great synergy, such a great time. We knew it was a time that we needed to laugh and smile, and the work was hard. And I just had a really good time teaching then.
Yeah,
It was just a really good time and joyful time of seeing the brilliance of our students.
Yes.
And that is what I think reignited me after being a teacher for 9 years and having this opportunity. Like, can we scale this work? So you've been a principal really at 2 schools, but you also been sort of this interim here and there, plugging in where you can plug in.
Very much.
Can you think of a time where you felt most particularly vulnerable and uncertain in your work? How did you manage that? And what did you learn from that?
Yeah, I think one of the most difficult times, and difficult times come and go, was when I had been first pulled from my homeschool and kind of loaned out to District 16 in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and I was just going to cover a school while this other school got while the other principal got it was called a master principal. So she was going to kind of oversee both schools because eventually they were going to merge.
Okay.
So it was a great school. I loved the kids. I was supporting the teachers, really just trying to build relationships. And then the other school was a very challenging school. Just missing a lot of resources. A lot of part of the community were very angry about, like, there was a feeling of loss and a feeling of being cheated, and that was a very real thing. So the principal decided she did no longer wanted to be in this position, and she revoked her right to return to her home school, which meant I was suddenly an interim acting principal at PS 308, the Clara Cardwell School. And so the optics of that, because she is African American woman, in a fully BIPOC person population. So I was supposed to go over with the superintendent and just introduce myself to the school leadership team. And the community was very angry, rightfully so, and they had organized a town hall that was also, the News was there, News 12 Brooklyn.
Oh, very nice. Yes.
Yeah. So the optics were awful.
Yes.
And the community didn't necessarily understand that the former principal was leaving by choice, because I don't know exactly what she told him, but the message that the community received was, I would love to be here, but I have to go back. It's the DOE. When in comes this white woman. And they were incredibly angry. What do you know about us? How do you, so I was and under the fire squad, but just from and they were rightfully angry. So I don't, the only thing that I was able to hold on to was from Pedagogy of the Oppressed and Pablo Freire. And I said, I hear you're angry. And I didn't totally understand the full what was going on. I said, however, all great change comes from the bottom up. It comes from grassroots to up, not top down. I said, so your voices matter, and for as long as I'm here, I am an ally and an advocate for your vision of the school and where you would like to go. So it was incredibly challenging. It was every single day. It was a lot of people, a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, and it was really a challenge to kind of center myself as, it's not about me, like Amy, the person. Right. This is a systemic issue, and one that I am a representative of the oppressive system. So I can't get angry at people for venting their anger on me, because it wasn't personal, and because their pain and their trauma and their concerns were very real. So learning to kind of take the moment and always center it around, this is what I can do. This is what's personal. This is what's not personal, and just try every day to be an advocate for the children, an advocate for the community. So really always trying to keep the vision and the purpose at the center of the work, even when, getting attacked. But it's not an attack of Amy Rodriguez, it's an attack of the system who has cheated the community for years.
So how do you do that? So thinking about the complexity of the role,
Mhm.
what you just described, um, is another part of the complexity because you recognize the systemic oppression, the racism that
Mhm. Yeah.
exists within the system. So how do you prioritize your own self-reflection? How did you get to that point where you had to say to yourself,
Mhm.
as a white woman leader, like I understand, or I'm listening to understand the trauma that's happening, because not everybody can do that. So how do you prioritize self-reflection, your own learning in the work as you lead schools of students of color?
Mhm. Absolutely. So I think constant education, staying humble, looking in the mirror more than looking out the window,
Mhm.
which is a huge shift from like when I was a first year teacher. Now I'm like, we're gonna do this together. And yeah, I know it's like I'm not here to save anybody,
Yeah.
and I'm also not like personally responsible for the systems of oppression, but to understand that there are indeed systems of oppression, my role within those systems of oppression, and to kind of like for true allyship, um, and to try to embrace a anti-racist perspective. It's like getting up every morning and looking in the mirror and brushing your teeth. Like every single day, you have to make the decision to do that. So every single day, making the decision to the best of my ability to be an anti-racist and uh, to hold tight to the vision of breaking the wheel. That's
Mhm.
ultimately what I really want to do. I want to break the wheel, and I feel like the best opportunity to break that wheel is from within rather than from without. And so looking for those cracks, being
Mhm.
aware of the systems, constantly passing the mic,
Mhm.
looking for opportunities, like being very aware that, you know, I am limited to my perspectives and my experience, that I have blind spots, that everybody has blind spots, but also to continually welcome those conversations of, hey, you know what, if I'm wrong, or like how does that land on you? And let's talk about it. So staying centered into like maintaining vulnerability while also um like being open to the conflict that inevitably comes, and the blind spots, and being um reflective enough. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a daily reflection, and I mess up every single day, and I'm still learning, and these
Right.
themes also don't go away.
Right.
They have not gone away, especially since my current school is the most diverse school that I've ever
Mhm.
worked in. I've never had a white child into my school until I was like about 15, 16 years into my career. So
Mhm.
now that I have a very diverse community, and I've been able to maintain that over the last 5 years, really making space for everybody, and
Mhm.
understanding that is an imperfect process, and using the tools that are out there to continually be in part of this inquiry cycle.
Yes.
Yeah. So and really having the children and the families being the litmus test
Mm.
of how effective are we at trying to create an anti-racist school that um, where we are going to shatter the norms of oppression, and lift every voice.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you keep your bucket filled? I mean, that's an enormous task to do. And first of all, thank you for being reflective and looking at yourself in the mirror and being in service to students, putting them first.
Mhm.
But how do you fill your bucket in order to push through the challenges that exist
Mhm.
as a principal or in schools?
I mean, it's a struggle. It is a struggle. Sometimes are easier than other times. Um, right now, for example, is a really challenging time, and also remembering like hard times don't last forever,
Mm.
and also acknowledging out of pain and discomfort comes growth. So trying to keep that mindset. I commute. I do not drive into the city. I live in New Jersey.
Mhm.
And by taking the train, I have an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half on either side of my day. And so taking that time every single day and making it part of my practice that's the time where I fill my bucket, whether or not it is preparing so I don't have to come into the school building and feel frazzled,
Yeah, yeah.
or listening to podcasts or writing or drawing on the way home, and making sure that I know that when I'm really depleted, I need to laugh, I need humor, I need fun. And like, it's what I tell my colleagues. I'm like, we are not doing brain surgery on the a war zone. I said that we're dealing with children, and no matter how hard things are, we're still dealing with kids, and kids are essentially joy and happiness personified.
Mhm.
So getting like I'll sing silly songs to the kids, and um and to my staff members, to just sing and dance out of nowhere, and remember that while the work is hard and the work is continuing, that essence of the human spirit has got to be central to everything that we do. So when there's pain and trauma, yes, we need to make space for that. And it's always not but and, like in improv, it's like yes, and
Yeah.
there is joy in the pain, and there are children and happiness, and that's kind of what has sustained me thus far.
Mhm. I mean, I remember as you and I were colleagues,
Hmm.
bursting into song and dance
Oh
was
yeah.
was normal. That was just like, wait, did you just say that word? Because now we're gonna just bust a move and
Yeah.
just stand down the hallway
Oh
or
yeah.
some Broadway tune. Uh,
Yes, always, still.
so I
Still.
know that that's your repertoire of joy. And I always remember that students absolutely loved being in your class. They just loved being around you. You are a warm person, you were understanding. And so what you're describing doesn't surprise me, right? It's how you've taken that into your principalship. So thinking about your colleagues you just talked about,
Mm.
those individuals who might be interested in doing the hand raise, or if they don't raise their hand, they're being tapped on the shoulder and say, hey, I think you should be a principal of a school.
Mm.
What advice or guidance would you give to those who are aspiring? What would be some of the attributes they need to be aware of or to work on that you think would make them successful?
I think there's a definite sense of humor,
Uh-huh.
because it's not all gloom and doom all the time, even though it does get very intense. I think having a very clearly articulated vision and mission that is completely embraced. Like, it's not a compliance based thing. It's like, this is really what I feel like I want to be in service of, and I am going to learn, and I'm going to be open to every opportunity to achieving that vision and mission. Um, Lean on your network.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's the cheese stands alone,
Yeah.
but the cheese is not alone. There are all sorts of resources and colleagues and organizations out there that are ready to support, who always have a different perspective, being open to different perspectives. Be comfortable with being wrong,
Hmm.
because you will fail in every way there is to fail, and that's okay, because that's the whole purpose of education. Is like, I used to think, but now I think.
Yeah.
But we as educators don't always want to embrace that.
Mm.
So you have to love yourself and everybody else as they are, even though sometimes it's a little challenging. Sometimes people are very unlovable, um, and that it's not always about you.
Hmm.
You don't have to take on other people's stuff. You don't have to own that. You can make space for it, but you don't have to own that and take that home with you. And yeah, I think it's resilience, humor, passion, and right now with this new generation, like commitment,
Hmm.
because I think that education is really hard to stay in,
Yeah.
especially since it is so affected by politics, and it's really hard to like hold fast and know that this too shall pass.
Mhm.
um, I'm holding on to this too shall pass right now with certain things, but what doesn't change is that vision and that commitment, and the kids deserve your commitment. And if you are not able to commit to a school for a length of time, your impact is going to be less.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you can't have impact. You know, everybody's journey is different, but I do think like you have to accept the good with the bad, and
Mm.
kind of go with the flow. It's gonna wax and wane. Every metaphor here, you know, it's a process, and in this process, you can really come close to like, touching that is what is most beautiful in humanity, because as long as there are children on this planet, there's hope.
Yeah. Yeah. That is great. And I have just one last question for you, and that is, what are you still learning about yourself as you are leading PS 282? What are you still
Mm.
learning that what's amazing you, I guess, about yourself in this journey?
Um, Again, the blind spots.
Mm.
As much as I worked to try to dismantle my blind spots,
Mhm.
that um, I have 84 staff members.
Uh-huh.
I have, and every single one of them has a different perspective of what is going on.
Yeah.
And then I have 540 children, and each of them has a unique perspective, and then multiply it by the families and caregivers,
Yes.
so that while I'm thinking I'm doing my best work, I am really mobilizing resources, I'm doing a great job, I'm really improving, and then to have someone say, "Well, I don't think so,"
Uh-huh.
and so to bridge that gap, and that human touch, that is like, yes, a lot of principling is systems and structures, and it should be.
Mhm.
um, what has surprised me this year is like how many people need that human relationship, which I was like, oh, I'm good at it, it's fine.
Yeah.
So like recently I've just started inviting different constituents into my office before the day begins to have a cup of cafe bustelo
Yep.
and
Yes.
say, you know, of course,
I know. You still got your coffee
oh,
going.
girl, I got a whole pot. And to say, hey, how are you doing? And they'll want to say, oh, well, these are the things I need, and like pedagogically, and I'm like, that's
Yeah.
yes, and I'm
Mhm.
here to check on you, and
Hmm.
I'm here to see you, because I say PS282 is like romper room. And then I have teachers who don't get it because they were not born
Born
then.
in the
I
rules.
could have been their mother, literally, at this point. So to and I used to say that as kind of flippantly, like, oh, PS282 is like romper room. It's like romper room over here. It I, I think every place, the world is like romper room. Everybody wants to be seen
Yes.
and affirmed and reassured and valued. And so trying to make the human time to say and fit it in somewhere by hook or by crook. With the kids, it's easy because I'm with them.
Mhm.
But like with teachers and paraprofessionals, related service providers, reminding them like, hey, you have a light, you have some fairy dust in you, and that has so much value. Your authenticity is the greatest gift that you can give to your school community. And no matter how many times I say it and I write it, and there's memos and there's professional learning, and it's all around authenticity and affirmations, but people don't hear it until you kind of look them in the eyes in a smaller place to say, hey, no, you matter.
Yeah.
You matter. Bring that light. Raise your voice. And even if it is in contrast with mine. I value that. That makes me better. You know, that's it's my shortcomings and my willingness to be an imperfect leader that sustains, because it is a process. It's not perfect, you know, and nobody likes to, you know, it's all labor pains. That's for my parents out there. I'm like, it's like giving birth, but for years. But with that pain comes growth.
That's true. For real, figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
So I know what I'm trying to birth here. It's just taking a long time.
Let me just say thank you so much. You gave such great insight into your journey, but also some great guidance. And I think the one piece that stuck out for me in this whole conversation, the theme that sort of is woven through everything that you said, is the human touch. You said that a few times, and you talked about being able to see people, that they matter, and that for you as a principal, you know, your bucket being filled too is that you have to see yourself in the mirror, right? And you have to also determine that you matter, and that, you know, to take a little bit of Principal Kafele, like, is your school better because you lead it? Right? So in order for your school to be better, you have to be fed. People need to see you. You have to matter, right? You have to have your bucket filled so that you can do the same thing for the teachers and the staff that and the families that you have this intimate one-on-one with, so you can see them. It's a part of leadership that gets rarely talked about, which is, you know, attending to the human person, right? It's the foundation of how people move through the world. If they know that they're cared for, if they feel that they're safe, if they feel that they matter and they have purpose, they'll be willing to take the risk. They will be able to listen to the content. They would wrestle and rumble with all the different challenges that there are, if they feel that they are being supported as a human. So thank you for reminding us that that is a key leadership trait and a great way in order to lead successfully and effectively. So thank you so much for this time.
Thank you for being a friend.
See you soon.